Again, welcome everyone. My name is Diana Olivar. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer of Boost Human. And for the last about year and a half, I've really dedicated my time and energy to this little startup. This technology is incredibly underutilized. It's not mainstream, and it's certainly early adopter technology. So those that have adopted it though, have seen incredible results. And we're going to talk about that during this webinar, along with the outcomes that customers are experiencing. So with that, let's get started. And I'm going to go ahead and take myself off the video. And I'll talk a little bit and give an overview about Boost Human. So Boost Human is headquartered in El Paso, Texas. That's where I'm at. And we are dedicated to smarter workforce development and accelerated knowledge transfer. So we're harnessing AI and mixed reality as a new way to learn. And it really starts with imparting knowledge. So how can we upskill, reskill, really develop talent, whether it's a student or an employee, so that they can master that knowledge quickly and effectively. And ultimately, the goal is to get them to be effective out in the workplace. So we are augmenting the current methodologies. So for an employee or a student, it could be reading manuals, listening to lectures, possibly sitting through e-learning modules. And some are engaging and some maybe they're not so engaging, right? So this has been a challenge for many organizations. How do we keep the person engaged and learning? So there is an alternative, and that's why we're here today to discuss this. For example, why not measure someone's proficiency at doing a task compared to taking a test? By harnessing VR technology, a student can put into practice what they've learned and demonstrate proficiency in a fraction of the time. So this is our team, this is who we are. When I met Dr. Gris almost 2 years ago, I was very impressed. I was very impressed with what he was doing with his software engineers. These young, talented group of people are not only academics, but they're entrepreneurs. And they have chosen to forego careers at NASA, some for Lockheed Martin. They get calls from Google and Facebook all the time. And they chose to be equity owners in this little startup. And when I saw what they were doing, especially here in my hometown, I was very humbled and very proud. So I jumped on board, and I really just wanted to help and get this message out that this is the future. And I'm behind, I call them kids. I'm behind these young minds to make a difference here in their hometowns, keep our talent here. Selfishly, if I can make a difference here in my region and impact the economy, create more jobs, then I think that using this technology, then I think we've been successful, right? So the team is from this region. They're binational, they're bilingual, and it really helps because we're so close to the border. And we've been really focused on helping the manufacturing industry in our sister city of Juarez. And our team of software engineers, they have master's or doctoral degrees in computer science and software engineering with over 25 years of collective academic and industry experience. So Dr. Ivan Gris, he's our CEO and founder, and he leads our development team, and he's also professor at Utah. And joining me today is Cory Shirk. He is our VP of Strategic Alliances, and he's going to discuss a new modality of learning and the benefits that we're seeing with immersive learning. So Cory has a unique background in both education and technology. He formerly was a director of music and fine arts in Rio de Janeiro. Then he moved back to the US and has since worked in technology for the past 12 years or so. And he's worked for companies like Dagis, Symantec, and most recently for a software development company called Blue Cat Networks. It's based out of Canada. And he sits on our advisory board, and he's going to be leading the discussion and providing insight into the future of delivering educational content. So welcome, Cory, and thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me. Hello, everyone.
So I'm going to start with our mission, really. And that's in alignment with every company and school's most important resource. I think you would agree, that's the people. It's students or employees. So how do we boost human capabilities? Learn, troubleshoot, connect. This is a typical natural workflow for most of us. And before we join the workforce, we learn. And when we're out in the field, we face problems, we troubleshoot, and we fix. And then when we become the experts, hopefully, we connect and we transfer our knowledge and we teach others. So our solutions here at Boost Human boost capabilities through technology. And our name, hence, is that, Boost Human. So we're promoting a smarter workforce by providing the tools needed to do the job effectively. So here's what we do. We consult and we develop custom software solutions for our clients. So to give you an idea of the breadth of our reach, of our capabilities, our suite of solutions include, like you see at the bottom right-hand corner, these virtual humans. These are interactive holograms. They utilize natural language process and they have a lifelike dialogue. Cory will discuss this later in detail. And currently it's being utilized by registered dietitian nutritionists at New Mexico State University. Up top in the right corner, you see virtual training, steering wheel. These are virtual simulations, which are safe and cost-effective ways to train. Think of what pilots have been doing for years, right? In simulators, training in simulators. And then on the top left-hand corner, telepresence. This is our augmented reality communication tool that connect the workforce. So imagine kind of like this, or a souped up FaceTime or Zoom, but having geospatial AR for line of sight fixes when you need to be hands-free. And then smart guides are a step-by-step process delivered in real time in the field of view. So why do we do what we do? Why immersive learning? So we're seeing that on-the-job training is one of the best ways to learn. So how about doing on-the-job virtual training before being on the job? So it combines the sense of presence of virtual reality and advanced learning theory, data science, and 3D design. So to put it sort of in layman's terms, as you're interacting in the virtual world, you're making decisions just as you would in the physical world, and you're activating the same neural pathways in your brain. And why this is important is because what you're practicing in virtual reality actually translates to real world performance. And the results of this can be measured through specific data points and insights, which can then be analyzed to improve outcomes. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Cory, and he will continue to discuss the particulars of immersive learning.
Yeah, thank you, Diana. So immersive learning, it's combining a lot of different experiences into a different modality, right? A supplemental modality. And we're finding that it is very effective, not only in corporate scenarios, but also in universities and schools. So for example, grabbing the learner's attention, my son, 8 years old, had a science project and he wanted it to be about the solar system. So we happened to have received, I think it was from Encyclopedia Britannica. So it's got a book, and then with that is some VR goggles. So we downloaded the app on the iPhone and we took it as part of his presentation at school. And it was amazing to see all the other kids and the parents wanting to experience this being in space. So they put on the VR goggles, and it was, sure, it could have been a novelty to them, but it was just a different way to deliver content to the participants. One of the other good things about immersive learning is, like Diana was saying, learning by doing. That's one of the best ways that we can can actually become proficient at a task is actually doing things and doing experimentation, failing, and redoing it. Playing, as you all know, one of the best ways for us to learn is by playing, right? And being able to do things on demand. You know, some of us can pick up skills or pick up content very quickly, and maybe the repetition needs to be once or twice or 3 times, whereas others may find a particular concept difficult and they need to repeat it over and over and over. Well, the good thing about this type of this modality of training is, considering it's on demand, you can do it to your heart's content, right? Another thing, the simulations emulating the real world, just like Diana was talking about, like the flight simulators, it does emulate a 747 without actually being in the 747, and to be able to simulate different types of scenarios, different perhaps dangerous scenarios or troubleshooting scenarios without putting that person at risk, which goes down to the safety portion down at the bottom. Or, for example, doing chemistry experiments with chemicals that, if combined, could be dangerous to the student. Well, in these types of virtual environments, the skin's not going to get burnt, right? Even if there is an error. And then also scaling out of this technology. For example, if someone wants to give a virtual tour of a school, of a warehouse, of a new store that they're putting up, with these augmented reality lenses, with the virtual reality lenses, what the person is seeing can be transmitted to tens of people, hundreds of people all around the globe. So the scale is something to be, especially nowadays. You know, unfortunately, with what we're being confronted with from a lack of travel, or the quarantine, or the lockdowns, this is another way to be able to connect with people without having to have physical proximity. Next slide, please. So most of you have probably already seen this triangle before, this pyramid, and it follows almost history, right? You know, back in the day, the lectures, the teacher in the front of the room, right? And then the printing press came about, right? There was reading, pretty common for us nowadays, right? So reading and lecture, pretty common for a lot of schools. Audio visual, probably in the last 100 years, have become more prevalent, especially in the last 20 with the proliferation of the internet and being able to have e-learning modules. Demonstrations, right, is taking a lot of what you've already learned and putting it to practice, typically demonstrating from one person to another. Group discussion is a wonderful way to bat around all the different ideas that you've learned in the 4 previous modalities. And then learning by doing. Diana had a good comment that OJVT, right, or OJT, right, where most of us are aligned to, actually doing the task, actually becoming proficient. Well, with what we're purporting to do here is combining a lot of these different modalities into an immersive experiential education of learning by doing in this virtual type of environment. So, there is a lot of brain power that is required to translate between the different modalities. So what we're attempting to do is to have an outcome, which is where people are learning faster, they're learning deeper, and with the hopes of retaining that information longer. So a couple of industry use cases. There's a medical university that's been utilizing VR training for surgeons. They're, again, not necessarily replacing everything that they've done, but they're augmenting or they're supplementing their training. And some of the benefits are less mistakes, right? Less errors, because they've been able to practice this over and over and over. And then to your right side, look at the kids. I mean, they're having a ball. Can you imagine being able to put on a pair of VR goggles and all of a sudden you've got an egg of a penguin between your feet, right? Or you're walking through the Kalahari and there's a zebra that just passed you by, or ascending Mount Everest, or you name it. And with this is, you can only imagine that experiential education, the retention that's burned into their burned into their memory, right, because of what they've gone through. And probably the most important part, they actually enjoyed the learning. So like Diana was mentioning a little bit ago about New Mexico State University, one of our clients, they were having a tough time with not graduating students, but getting them to complete their clinical hours just due to the remoteness of the region, not enough hospitals and clinics to be able to accrue that. I think it was about 1,200 hours worth of clinical experience. So they would graduate 12, but only 6 could get the hours. So getting them to market, right? Getting the throughput to get them to actually contribute to the hospitals and to start getting into the workforce. So we worked with New Mexico State and the accreditation agency to see if it was possible to supplement those hours, not with on-site in the hospital or in the clinic experience, but would it be possible if we created interactive holograms that these students would be able to interact with those holograms as if they were interacting with a real person at a real hospital. So with the subject matter experts at New Mexico State and with the regulation agency, the accreditation agency, we were able to create scripts, interactive scripts to where the response from, and also for different ailments, could it be for cancer, could it be for diabetes, just a litany of different afflictions of a patient. So with the subject matter experts, are like, these are the typical questions, these are the typical responses. And then based upon that decision tree of logic, the person with the goggles or the interactive headset is able to interact with that virtual hologram as if they are a real person. And the outcomes or the conversation, just like normal conversations, can be played out in a variety of scenarios. So that the experience that they were and are able to gain via this experience is able to graduate 12 and get the accreditation hours much quicker. Like I said, about 25% is acceptable. So we're impacting New Mexico State, we're impacting those students, and hopefully giving them a novel and interesting way to acquire their knowledge and to become better at what they do. So back to you, Diana.
Okay. So we have a video that we're going to show you now. This is a VR training, and this was an automotive company in Chihuahua for quality assurance of their steering wheels, and we were able to reduce some of their training time. So it's close to about 32%.
In this case, we can observe a virtual reality training tool. Training tools, it's something that Boost Human offers. These are highly customized projects, and they can be a virtual or augmented reality. In this case, we're observing a virtual reality training tool. The person on the smaller screen is representing a test administrator. This is an application that is actually in use by a steering wheels manufacturer. And what the test administrator is doing right now is configuring the test to tell their employees what types of steering wheels they're going to find and what defects they have. This is a tool for quality assurance. Now, the employee, now also represented by the person in the smaller screen, goes in virtual reality and can manipulate things in a completely virtual environment. In this case, the application is for quality assurance, but other common use cases include dangerous situations, hazardous conditions, or expensive situations to simulate, like failed conditions on expensive machinery. And you can easily visualize this by pilot training, for example, where you really don't want to train in a simulated hazardous condition. What the employee is doing in this screen is analyzing the steering wheels. They can ask for a hint, and they can decide if it's defective or if it's passing. They can interact with the environment using their hands, in this case through a controller, through virtual reality. And after the test is done, they get a summary of the results. Now, depending on the company, different analytics can be presented, and this can be inputted in Minitab, Tabula, or other analytics software, either internal or customized through a dashboard. And in this case, they let them know where the employees are better fit to perform. if they're better at detecting some types of defects. And basically, they just help them train with about 2,600 steering wheels rather than the 50 that they used before.
Great, and next I'm going to show you a video sampling of some of the applications that we've built and that are currently available on the app and Google Store. This first one is called Anatomy AR, and this helps students learn the skeletal system and muscle groups. You can do this from your desktop or mobile device in the comfort of your own home. This is for soft skills training, the immersive hologram, and this is an interaction with the patient with diabetes. And then this next example is smart guides. So this is showing a step-by-step process. In this case, we helped a company that was assembling a robot arm. You see Alex is on the bottom left with a HoloLens, and he is able to control that through gestures or voice recognition. Okay, Cory, back to you.
Very good. So just in summary, we want to talk about, it may be new concepts to some of you. This could be remedial for others. But virtual reality, what really is it? It's a headset that blocks out your entire field of view, so you're immersed in a virtual world. Augmented reality, right, is you see the physical world, but you overlay information on top of your field of view. And mixed reality, that is a little bit more complex, or a little bit more sophisticated. To break it down in simplest terms, in AR, I can see the ball floating in the air. But in mixed reality, I can actually grab the ball, I can throw it, I can blend in holographic information with the real object.
Okay, thank you, Cory.
You're welcome.
So in this next slide, we just wanted to put together a little bit of the partners and clients that we've worked with. And so just to recap some of the ones we've talked about, TRW in Chihuahua is one of the first success stories. So we provided VR training for quality assurance by providing a VR software solution for their training, evaluation, and R&R repeatability and reproducibility. So this tool is for quality control operators, specifically those that were focused on the manual or visual part of an inspection procedure. And we were able to reduce their training time, as I mentioned, by about 32%. And more importantly, it reduced their turnover cost. So at NMSU, as Cory talked about, we were able to take a quarter of their clinical training hours by implementing immersive learning. And we were able to increase their throughput so more students can graduate and enter the workforce quicker. And we certainly need more healthcare workers at this time. And then we developed Laura, which is an interactive hologram, which the City of El Paso Procurement Department, they utilized this for marketing at the Cooperative Expo last year. If anybody that's on the call was there and you remember, we had this life-sized hologram and it provided an interactive experience for anybody who would walk up to her and ask her questions about the event via microphone. So she was a full-length mixed reality Laura hologram, and that was able to provide high-tech, cutting-edge, intelligent marketing for the city. And really the goal of the hologram was to promote the benefits of working with the procurement department and their support team, and ultimately attract outside vendors and sponsorships, which would have a lasting impact on our regional economic development here in our city. And then Microsoft. So we have our mixed reality lab in our office. It's a collaboration between Boost Human, Microsoft's TechSpark program, and P21 here in El Paso. And we seek to disseminate knowledge about virtual and augmented reality and how to use it to apply it to our own needs. So this program really provides the community access to high-end augmented reality and virtual reality devices for you to learn and experiment with. So we also have a series of free online courses that assist new developers or potential ones to adopt the technology. And you can find all of this on our website at boosthuman.com in mixed reality for everyone. Our software engineers, I'll just mention, all of them either volunteer at schools, they help students who are looking to do coding. So they're all focused on really trying to develop young minds to be able to have career paths in computer science. Next, I'm going to introduce a video with Dr. Ivan Gris, and he talks a little bit about this collaboration I mentioned.
If you're as excited as I am and can't wait to start trying things out, you don't have to wait any longer. And you don't need to have an expensive high-end device to play around in VR. In my experience, VR and AR applications teach you by experiencing, by traveling, and by doing. Here are a few apps that you can try to do just that. Experience historical reenactments, nature documentaries, or current events. Try books in hands with AR components or art exhibits. Experience dangerous or thrilling situations from a safe place and see the world through someone else's eyes. Travel around the world's museums. Much like Google Street, which allows you to walk around the globe from your screen, many museums are mapped and ready to be explored. Many cities also have VR experiences that take you through their historic places and breathtaking scenery. You can also explore some places in the solar system and beyond. Examine the human body, take things apart and put them back together, and create your own apps using easy-to-use tools available online. There are many possibilities. Some schools even have their own VR rooms, and students use them on a regular scheduled basis. Please be aware that these devices are not recommended for kids under 13 years old, as it can potentially harm their vision as it develops. That is, do not have kids hours at a time behind the headset. Moderate, intermittent use should minimize the risk. For more detailed information on these recommendations, check out the respective headset safety and warning guidelines.
Okay, now to recap the benefits.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about this, right? Simplifying complexity. If you go back to that triangle, right, we're trying to simplify all those different modalities into, again, a simulated immersive experience. The online learning, right? It's to be able to hopefully make it exciting, make it rewarding, make it maybe a gamification of the learning, maybe dashboards to see who's doing well, so helping children compete or helping people compete with one another, right? To see how well they do on a particular task. Creating the real life experience, right? To bring it up again. Pilots been doing this for 50, 60 years, right? They do it for a reason, right? And they're trying to recreate that real life experience. Not necessarily that you go directly from a flight simulator to having passengers on a plane, but it definitely helps prepare those pilots for actually getting down to a plane and doing the real world flying of a plane 30,000 feet in the air, right? So it's part of the process. Reducing distraction, right? We've got a lot of distractions, all of us. So if there's a way that we can provide a different type of engagement, hopefully that'll be an opportunity to, especially with VR, I mean, you are in it. Constant learning, right? Enabling students to continue to adapt and continue their curriculum, continue their development through their own virtual environments, and maybe even taking a little bit of control of it. They teach remotely, just like we're doing right now, right? A lot of things are very remote, and who knows what's going to happen in the future. But hopefully this technology not being a substitute, for everything, but just being a supplemental modality for these children. One of the good things is it can be done online. We talked about the safety portion of it. We can, if you're trying to teach a welder how to weld, and then you can place that person on a skyscraper or place them in a very tight situation or a precarious situation while they're doing their task, you can simulate these different types of scenarios, thus desensitizing them and hopefully being able to prepare them for when they actually are in that situation. And retaining information, right? You know, visuals, immersive experience is a great way to retain information. And this is just, there again, just another modality to try to get that stuff to stick, right? And from what we're seeing, they're able to get it faster, they're able to get it deeper, and hopefully retaining it longer.
Very good. Cory, thank you so much for recapping. This is where we get to our Q&A section, and